I don't know if y'all could tell or not, but Keith's generally pretty shy. Our next speaker, I was glad to find out about. Actually, Jeff Maddox is the one who brought him to my attention. He is a retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major, Larry Risvold. So everybody that's out there, you better be on your best behavior because Sergeant Major's in the house.
Good afternoon, Columbia, South Carolina. We want D.C. to hear us. We want all the state capitals in this state and this nation to send back a message to D.C. You know, each generation had a lot of things to overcome. My grandfather was a World War I veteran, rose to the occasion. Many veterans for World War II are monuments all across this park and other parks. They rose to the occasion. A lot of people forget about the sacrifices and the casualties. As a Marine, you think of Iwo Jima, all the battles, Guadalcanal, Okinawa. They were horrible. The largest amphibious landing, though, went on D-Day, and it was done by the United States Army. They did one heck of a good job, did they not? We also forget about the highest casualties of all the branches, even more than the Marine Corps, and hit the islands, was the United States Air Force. Over 50% of them guys flying those bombers did not come back. It was horrible. We forgot about those guys who rose and stood for us. But our country recently has closed the gates on them during this government shutdown, which is totally unsat. Each generation following World War II had their own battles. The Korean conflict, right after World War II, the government started neutering the military. The company-grade officers in the Army were removed, sent home. It's time to get out. We don't need them anymore. We have this special bomb, the atom bomb at the time. The NCOs, the enlisted leadership within the Army, was gutted, sent out home. 5 years later, the Korean War conflict came, caused by the agreements made during the World War II war. We got our butts handed to us by a third world country. We had to rise up and kick butt, and we survived this. We never signed a war agreement. We're still involved in that conflict to this day. Following the Korean War came the Vietnam War. My generation, I just missed it. I was just a little bit too young. I signed up as the last battle of the Vietnam War. The Migrants was taking place. I was swearing in for the late entry program to join the Marine Corps. Wound up being an infantryman. Served 28 years, 2 months, and 11 days. Who was counting? Had a wonderful time. Absolutely would do it again to this day. But I need the American people to be behind us. I'll tell you, when I got back from Desert Storm and I'm flying in, I had 2 kids at home. My daughter didn't even know what I looked like. If I was standing up in a lineup with a bunch of other Marines, she wouldn't know which one I was because I was gone all the time. I got off that airplane in Maine, and the customs made us get off the airplane. I said, what are we getting off the airplane for? This is crazy. The airport at 2 o'clock in the morning had Americans standing up there wanting to thank us. I was the company gunny of a rifle company, and I was bawling like a baby. I was hiding my tears the best I could. Kids wanted us to sign their T-shirts because we were heroes in their mind. We were just average Americans who stood that particular battle, and we were being thanked. You're here today because we couldn't be up at D.C. I wish I was at D.C. with them right now. The battle we're having going on, well, let me back up just a minute. This is the month of October, 1983. We had Beirut. The State Department got involved and told them that weapons had to be unloaded. They're standing in a foreign country surrounded by Muslims, and their weapons were unloaded. The State Department says, for quality of life, we need our Marines to move into that barracks. The commander on the ground said, no, I want them in the ground dispersed so that they can't get killed. We all know what happened in 1983 this month. Following that, came Desert Storm. Following Desert Storm, we had another president. That president decided that it's time to cut the military. They cut all the branches. The Marine Corps was kind of left alone. The Army got cut in half. They went from 900 plus thousand to 400 and some thousand. That cut forced the National Guard to become the sustaining force for them when the Army got activated into combat. That's why our National Guard men and women are being deployed, and instead of being like a Marine infantryman that goes over for 6 or 7 months and comes back, they're over there for a year and a half. They didn't sign up for that, but they are doing it. They rose to the occasion. Another story of Americans standing up for what's right. Now it's our turn. Now we got a government shutdown. There's been many government shutdowns in the past. Never before in the history of our great country has the National Mall been barricaded by signs. This morning, I looked at a video where they had to cut the wires. They went back and re-put the signs, the gates back up, and had them wired together. And they went in there with hacksaws and cut them. Before I left to come over, you're right. Before I left to come over here, they picked up those gates and they walked over to the White House and stacked them in front of the White House. If you go over and look at the pictures, you all know the famous picture of the Marines raising the flag at Mount Suribachi. Well, there was a bunch of Marines, you could tell because they had their USMC shirts on, and they were posing on top of the wire or the gates, another monument of the picture of the Iwo Jima monument. Because that gate today is still closed, and veterans could not go there. It's just sad. 29 servicemen and women have passed away here this last week, and never in the history of our great nation have we refused to pay death beneficiary benefits to the loved ones. When I was on active duty years ago, it used to be like $5,000. That money was meant to offset the expenses of the family to take care of those loved ones, so they could get to the funeral. Because the money stops when you have a loved one that dies. The bank account shuts off. The money stops. The bank accounts get locked up. That money was there, handed to them in a check, so they had cash that they could go do the things they need to do for their loved one, so that they could do the right, responsible, give them the honor they deserve. That was cut off. That was, thank God some people rose up, and later they was signed off, and now it's being returned back out there. But it should have never ever been a topic of discussion. Let me tell you something. When that Babe Ruth thing happened, I was in 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. Across the street from me was a Marine that was in 1-8. 1-8 was the battalion that got blown up. This young Marine, he was a corporal, married, had 2 kids. He was in the Army prior to coming in the Marine Corps. And when he was in the Army, he was a Humvee mechanic. When he joined the Marine Corps, they made him an infantryman. So he put in a lap move request and a re-enlistment request, and they approved his lap move. They pulled him out of the trenches where the Marines were sleeping, the infantry, the grunts, if you will, and put him in the barracks. That night is when they hit the bomb and left a wife and 2 kids. A young corporal. It was horrible. The gates at Camp Lejeune, base housing, Terror Terrace, was open. It was an open gate base. You could go on to the Terror Terrace. The media had swarmed in and were harassing these young brides with their just lost their husband and had to take care of their kids. You know, you're talking corporals and sergeants. Terror Terrace was for NCO housing. Corporals and sergeants, E4s and E5s. They're 19 to 22 years of age. And they're running in, and it was just absolutely horrible. So by seeing you all here today, and all the things that are going on across this great nation, we must stand and demand that our veterans can be taken care of, and we got to take care of our country. Please get involved.
Thank you, Sergeant Major.